The organizers of an alternative Super Bowl halftime performance are hailing their show as one of the most watched live streams in history. Turning Point USA billed it as a conservative counter-program to the Super Bowl's halftime performance that featured the Latino artist Bad Bunny, a critic of President Trump. Here to break down what it means for the future of the conservative movement is Emily Brooks. She is author of The Movement, a newsletter following the influences and debates shaping politics on the right. Hey, Emily. So it's kind of hard to say exactly how many people watch this alternative live stream. It gets cut up and distributed all over the internet. But at one point, there were more than 6 million people watching on YouTube, paltry compared to the estimated 130 million plus who watched the main Super Bowl performance. But do the organizers at TPUSA feel like this show was a success?
They absolutely feel like this is a success. They're claiming success. And we're comparing streams and live streams and replays to things like, the Nielsen ratings for the Super Bowl, which have not officially come out yet. And it's really hard to say how many people actually turned off the Super Bowl halftime show and turned on the alternate Turning Point USA halftime show with Kid Rock and other country artists. But, that YouTube live stream had at one point, when it was live, 6.1 concurrent live viewers. And that is a pretty major numbers in the streaming world and for YouTube. And, we haven't gotten confirmation of exactly what that means in the metrics, but it's certainly one of the biggest streams for YouTube, for live streams concurrence. And that in itself is a major win for Turning Point USA. There were people tuning in. There were people from the administration boosting this. And, there were some lip sync issues maybe with Kid Rock, but ultimately it had high production values and it wasn't a joke. And that is, I think, a major success for Turning Point USA. And they're doubling down and pledging to do another one next year.
What do you think this means moving forward? There has been an effort by conservatives to kind of capture the culture. This was a project Charlie Kirk had been working on for years before his assassination. How will TPUSA and other conservative organizations continue to pursue that goal?
Yeah, well, I think when you're thinking about this halftime show, one goal of it was to show the NFL that their conservatives in a large portion of the country didn't want to see an artist that they deemed to be liberal, anti-ICE, and not representative of the bulk of America. And, Bad Bunny doesn't sing in English, and he's not really somebody that a lot of the people who support Turning Point USA can relate to. And the one goal of that was to pressure the NFL and maybe make them think twice about what kind of acts they're going to have on in the future, and maybe scare them if they're losing eyeballs and potentially losing ad revenue. We mentioned the numbers, so that's kind of hard to tell. But, another thing is that this is a big kind of debate and tactics about, do conservatives want to take over existing institutions and change them, like the Trump administration is trying to force changes in higher education, or are we going to go back to the conservative thought of just build another version of this? They built all of these alternative social media platforms when conservatives were getting banned from Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And, this is kind of a return to that idea of build your conservative alternative halftime show. And Turning Point certainly is seeing a lot of success in that. And so I think that is an interesting strategy. And it's one that there's been a little bit of a debate about whether that's good, or if conservatives should focus their energy more on retaking and taking over the institutions that are driving the major forces in American life.
There doesn't seem to be full agreement that conservatives need to carve out an alternative cultural ecosystem. While you had some commentators on the right, like Megyn Kelly, for example, excoriating the Bad Bunny performance, others like Candace Owens, Meghan McCain said they kind of like the performance and not everything needs to be about politics. What do you make of that tension?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the tension is. Is it like a lot of these conservative organizations and commentators and take makers, posters get a lot of fuel from the angry rage clicks and forming the alternative, and it does help kind of spur that own ecosystem. And some people would say maybe that's a little bit too toxic. Why can't you just enjoy things, enjoy this and that? There's also been like another related debate about that, about should we really be bashing Bad Bunny that much? I mean, Trump did have a really big surge in Hispanic and Latino voter support in 2024. That's been dropping off a little bit. Is bashing a Spanish-speaking a musical performance, partially because it's in Spanish, really such a good idea. But there's a lot of different thoughts and takes there, but mostly, I think overwhelmingly, the sentiment is this was not a performance that was for the conservative America, and they're unhappy with that. But I think the energy, at least from Turning Point's perspective, is they're seeing a lot more energy in continuing to create these alternative halftime shows, alternatives to the main institutions. So maybe there's going to be more of a push and a return to that rather than trying to infiltrate the NFL or something and get them to put on a country artist in the future.
All right, it'll be a story that we continue to follow, but for now, let's leave it at that. Emily Brooks, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.